Well, welcome to Christian Answers. This is Pastor Jeff Short. Again, we're going to be analyzing a contemporary news item. Today, we're going to be talking about, from a biblical Christian perspective, the whole episode around this so-called transitioned woman. He's still actually a man, Rachel Levine. And the insanity just gets deeper and deeper and deeper as you go along in this immoral revolution that we're undertaking right now in our culture in the West. What we see here happening today is that USA Today newspaper is naming Rachel Levine as its Woman of the Year. Yes, that's right, Woman of the Year. This is a biological man. Every cell in his body is male. And he's supposedly transitioned now into a female. And so now we're supposed to go right along with his delusion. We're supposed to go along with his mental illness. And we're supposed to support him and encourage him and actually celebrate him as a woman of accomplishment. And so USA Today, the newspaper, is proclaiming that Rachel Levine, this man, dresses as a girl, transvestite, you might say. He is now the Woman of the Year. You cannot get any more absurd, but wait, we will see more absurdities as this whole immoral revolution, the LGBTQ revolution, goes forward. We're going to see more and more and more and more and more absurdities because, well, once you start down that road of foolishness, you cannot get off it very easily. And it will take a miracle from God for our culture to ever recover from this foolishness, this terrible, awful insanity that we are following. So USA Today slammed for naming male-born Rachel Levine one of its Women of the Year. And so we're going to cover this article. I don't even have to probably teach anymore. I've been teaching the Bible for so long that everyone knows by now that in the beginning, it says in the book of Genesis, in the beginning, he created them male and female. So God creates everyone either male or female. And when he creates you male, you are to be male. You are to stay male. You are to present yourself as a male because you are a male. When he creates you female, you're to present yourself as a female. You're to be a female because that's what you are. So you're supposed to go through life in the station that God Almighty has ordained for you. And Rachel, so-called Rachel Levine, her new name, his new name, is a man. And if he were to do the will of God, he would go through life as a man, because that's what he is. You can look in his chromosomes, you can look in his DNA, you can look in his body, and he is male. So he is now presenting himself as female. And what is so foolish and absurd and insane in our culture is that grown adults are going along with his insanity. See, Rachel Levine has a sickness, has a mental illness. And that mental illness is called gender dysphoria. Rachel Levine doesn't feel comfortable in his maleness. And so now his feeling is, well, I need to change my identity. I need to present myself as a female. Well, guess what? This guy isn't fooling anybody. Now, there are some transgender people, so-called, who work really, really hard at presenting themselves the opposite sex, and they actually can fool some people for some time if they're in public or you see their picture. This dude, Rachel Levine, this guy, he doesn't fool anybody for even a split second. He is not he does not present himself as a female. He presents himself as a man dressed up like a woman, a very old woman, a very, I should say, hideous woman because he's trying to do two things. He's trying to combine what he is, which is a man, with the outward dressing of a woman, and it looks monstrous. And he looks monstrous. He does not look like a man. He does not look like a woman. He looks like a monster, like sort of a Frankensteinish kind of a creature. And that's what happens when you try to disobey God, you try to ignore God's will, you are going to turn yourself into a hideous monster. And that's what this man has done. But instead of getting him help, instead of referring to him to some psychiatrist or psychologist, psychoanalytic treatment, here USA Today newspaper is now celebrating him, holding him up as a role model. So let's get into this article and let me talk to this issue from a Christian biblical perspective. We've done this many, many times. Rachel Levine has been parading around in public now for over a year. And unfortunately, we have to see his face now even more because he's in the spotlight again, and that's with the Time magazine, the USA Today newspaper Woman of the Year, which is an absurdity itself. So let's go down and read a little bit further and talk about this issue. This is sad, it's sick, it's twisted, and I guess we're supposed to just go along with this. Well, we shouldn't go along with it. Christians should object and say, no, this is wrong, this is evil, this is sinful, this is perverted, this is an affront not only to knowledge and reason and logic, it's a moral affront, it's ethical affront, it violates so many norms that we can't even classify how many norms that this violates. And yet, USA Today wants us to go along with it. Well, we're not going to go along with it. We're going to criticize it, and we're going to fiercely criticize it until people get the message, until they understand a man cannot become a woman. That's impossible. A woman cannot become a man. That's impossible. And this whole project of transgenderism is doomed at the outset for failure because it's just impossible. Why? Because God created them male and then he created them female. Two separate categories. That's his will. That's his way, and he wants that way done. And when we don't do that, we are in rebellion against him. We are sinning against him. And unfortunately, judgment will come on any culture that continues in this perversion. Well, let's read the USA Today article. USA Today came under fire Tuesday for recognizing Biden administration official Rachel Levine, who was born male, as one of its 12 Women of the Year. 12 Women of the Year. So here's a dude, here's a guy, here's a man who snuck in the list of Women of the Year. Where are the feminists? Where are the women's right activists? This is total appropriation. This is male appropriation of a female. Here is a man stealing a position from a woman, the honor that a woman should get. And if you were to look at the list of USA Today newspapers, 12 Women of the Year, you definitely disagree on their accomplishments. You would disagree that they're worthy. For example, Kamala Harris, she's definitely not worthy of Woman of the Year based on her actual accomplishments as vice president. But there would be no dispute that she could be on that list. She would definitely be eligible to be on that list because she is a woman, no question. But Rachel Levine, the man, the dude, the guy dressed up like a girl, no, he doesn't deserve to be on the list. And his presence on the list is an affront to all kinds of norms and sensibilities. The Health and Human Assistant Secretary billed as the first transgender Senate-confirmed cabinet officer was honored Sunday, honored by USA Today as a groundbreaking leader, public health champion, and an advocate. That's the very disturbing part, honored. These people are honoring a man in place of a woman. They're saying that this guy, this dude, this man, old man dressed as an old woman, he's being honored. You know, there's also a scripture in the Psalms that says what is honored, when evil is honored, the wicked flaunt, it says, the wicked flaunt about when what is honored is evil. And so this is part of that honoring of evil. The wicked flaunt about. They just strut about because they have no constraint, because adults in the room, decent, normal people, don't speak up. Well, we have to speak up and say, no, this is inappropriate, this is immoral, this is foolish, this is stupid, this is a bad idea. And we need to rebuke this kind of stuff, not honor it and not celebrate it. This is absurd. Okay, we have this dude's definition of courage. My definition of courage would be to be true to yourself and to be true to who you are, and then to pay that forward, to work toward the common good, said Levine in a video on the newspaper's Women of the Year site. So again, more gibberish. Who cares what this guy's definition of courage? You know, notice the definition of courage that is being put forth by this transvestite. Notice that it is totally wrapped up in his self. Of course that's what your definition of courage would be, because you're promoting yourself. How about giving a definition of courage that has some semblance to a dictionary definition of courage? For example, to go to the moon for the first time. Neil Armstrong. There's a movie that came out a couple years ago called First Man, the first man on the moon. And it talked about how Neil Armstrong had to be bolted into the cockpit of that spaceship along with two other men, and they blasted off toward the moon, away from the Earth, sitting on top of thousands and thousands of gallons of liquid fuel that could explode at any second. And they had to encounter G-forces, and they had to encounter all kinds of unknowns. That is courage, the courage of discovery. That is what we call courage. And if you look in the dictionary, that is what the definition of courage will be when you basically go into the unknown for a worthy cause. It has nothing to do with being true to yourself. That is a self-centered maxim. That is a self-centered. If you were to maybe define narcissism, if you were to define egoism, egotistical, you would come up with something like courage as a definition of being true to yourself and being true to who you are. See, that is a self-centered, narcissistic, ego-driven definition of courage, which is not correct. It's not even a correct definition of courage. So he is already distorting not only the differences between male and female, he's also distorting the vocabulary of the English language. Courage. He's redefining courage to fit him. You could do the same thing with anything. You could take some lazy scoundrel who refuses to work and say, and that scoundrel could say, well, my definition of courage is never working a day in your life. Yeah, you just define the whole dictionary definition of courage. And that's what Levine is doing here. It has nothing to do with being true to yourself. Because if you're a delusional, insane person, being true to yourself may be demanding that people treat you as Napoleon or whoever. The newspaper's decision to bestow the honor on a male-born figure was greeted with pushback online from conservatives, feminists, and Babylon Bee. That's a satire site, which declared Tuesday that Ms. Levine was its first annual Man of the Year. Well, I wouldn't even want to go as far as Man of the Year. You might say Idiot of the Year, or Stupid of the Year, or Insane of the Year, or maybe the first mentally ill cabinet appointment. Psychopath. I don't know. You could come up with a lot of different things. I don't even want to claim him as a Man of the Year. He might be the Man of the Year because he was able to con a whole nation into even considering him as a woman. So you might say he is the con man of the year. I don't know. You could go different ways with this. Levine is the U.S. Assistant Secretary for Health for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, where he serves proudly as the first man in that position to dress like a Western cultural stereotype of a woman. Yeah, so that's what you could say, that Rachel Levine is the first man who's been able to dupe adults enough to actually rise to a level of a cabinet position and trying to cross-dress his way to success. You might want to frame it in those terms. He's also an admiral in the U.S. Public Health Service Commission Corps. What a boss, the Bee wrote. So games are being played with vocabulary, with logic, with rationality, and as Christians we need to object and say, no, we don't go along with this. This is not a woman. This person didn't win Woman of the Year. I think back to the time when Bruce Jenner began to talk about in terms of being a woman. And then, what was it? ESPN magazine came out with Bruce Jenner as the Woman of the Year. So these woke, progressive, liberal, leftist outlets are just so eager to promote this. And they're falling all over themselves to try to be in line, to be the first one to congratulate these mentally ill people in celebrating them. And so ESPN Magazine and ESPN SB Awards awarded Bruce Jenner Woman Athlete of the Year. Right. What a disgrace. I mean, how many other more worthy athletes were passed over to get to that celebrity Bruce Jenner Woman of the Year award? How many? Again, this is taking away from women's sports. It's taking away from women's progress to name Rachel Levine as a Woman of the Year. She's not a woman. He's not a woman. He's a man. We need to just name it. We need to state it. We need to call him out. Also weighing in was Abigail Marone, spokesman for Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, who tweeted, "What's even the point of the list anymore? Insulting to women." Exactly. What's the point of having a Woman of the Year award when you're giving it to a man? What is the point of it? It's an exercise in the absurd. And so I think the best thing we can do is just laugh at this. Just mock it. Just make fun of it mercilessly. Just mock it, laugh at it, joke about it, chuckle about it, but never, ever take it seriously, because it's not serious. Conservative podcast host Stephen Crowder tweeted, "Congratulations, brave and beautiful former male Admiral Rachel Levine, for being one of USA Today's Women of the Year just for wearing a dress." So the bar is really low, I guess, in our secular, foolish society for being a woman. All you have to do is put on the clothes of a woman, and voila, you're a woman. Another commentator, transgender Rachel Levine was named one of USA Today's Woman of the Year, Women of the Year, Where are the transgender women who became men? Are they taking spots meant for men to win? Will they be Man of the Year? A full assault on woman. It's the opposite of women's lib. So you have this joke, and it is a joke. It's a comedy. It's sort of a satire, but it's not satire. It is satire, and we should treat it as that, and we should treat this as a joke, and we should treat this as humor because it cannot be taken seriously. If you are a rational human being, and especially if you're a Christian biblical human being, you cannot take this seriously because this is a joke. This dude is a dude. By every measurable standard, this is a man. And yet, USA Today's Woman of the Year. If you take it seriously, you will be a part of the insanity. A pediatrician, the 64-year-old Levine, transitioned from male to female in 2011. No, he didn't. He made an effort to try to change something. Now, change something in his body. He cut off something or added something or grafted something onto his body. He began to take chemistry and chemicals and medicine to try to make his chemistry more in line with the female. But every single cell of his body is male. And you can pour chemicals into your body, and you can take surgery and have every feature changed, but you're still a male. Just because you dress in a dress and you wear your hair longer and you try to put on makeup and you try to take on all of the female stereotypes, that still doesn't make you a female, because only God can make you a female. You are born that way, and that way you will die. And you will not become a female just by your own human puny efforts. No one ever became a female. They are either born that way or they're not that way. We all need to be welcoming and celebratory for women of all aspects of and all shapes and sizes. That's true. That's true. But all women of all shapes and all sizes, yes. But we don't have to be welcoming and celebratory of men who are trying to pass themselves off and masquerade as women. No, that's a counterfeit. That is a fake. That is a fraud. And so we don't have to be celebrating of fraud. We should actually be discouraging fraud. Fraud is deception. We don't live by lies. Like Alexander Solzhenitsyn would remind us in his writings, live not by lies. We need to live in the truth, in the light of truth, and get out into the sunlight of truth and stop hiding in the shadows of these lies. Rachel Levine, he changed his name to Rachel. You can do that all your name. You can change your name. You can change your clothes. You can change your hairstyle. You can change this part and this part and this part of you. You can do all kinds of things. It doesn't make you a female if you're not a female. And Rachel Levine has gone to great efforts to try to deceive people, fool people, trick people into thinking, convince people into thinking that he's actually a woman, but he's not. Those congratulating Ms. Levine included White House Domestic Policy Advisor Susan Rice, who tweeted, "Your leadership during this pandemic has been vital." His leadership during the pandemic has been damaging because not only is there anxiety and confusion about the pandemic, now this person is trying to confuse the categories, basic categories of humanity, male and female. So his leadership has been a disaster, has been terrible, has been evil, has been harmful. And we're only now just seeing the effects of it. The generations, the seeds that have been sown by this dude are going to be felt for generations to come in the confusion and spiritual darkness that he is sowing. Ms. Levine is hardly the first male-born figure to receive honors designated for women. Earlier this month, Time magazine named transgender celebrity Michaela Hai Rodriguez, star of the FX series Pose, one of its Women of the Year. So again, Time magazine is doing the same thing as USA Today. They're trying to promote this idea. They're trying to push this idea. And they're never going to succeed because they're fighting biology. And that's what, as Christians, we have to be confident in the truth. First of all, God has given us the truth in His Word, but we also have reason and logic and actual rationality with us. And so Time Magazine and USA Today and all these other liberal leftist outlets, they can do whatever they want, but it won't change the simple fact that this dude is a dude and he will never be a woman. He will never be the Woman of the Year. They can name him that all they want. They can deny reality all they want. USA Today's other award winners include Vice President Kamala D. Harris. Okay, she is actually a woman. Philanthropist Melinda French Gates, who is also actually a woman. And Olympic gold medal gymnast Simone Biles, actually a woman. Okay, no problem. But don't name a man to be Woman of the Year, because that is an insult to every thinking person. It's an insult not only to every Christian, because God has already spoken on this subject, so we don't have to go back over it, but it's also an insult to every person with a brain. Because when you see a man who is trying to dress like a woman and talk like a woman and act like a woman in public, and then you're going to try to tell people and convince them, oh, he really is a woman. You are insulting their intelligence. You are being patronizing to them. You're trying to con them. You're trying to pass off something that's counterfeit. And we need to just step up in the midst of our lying culture and say, no, I'm sorry. Nope. You can name her every honor you want, and you can call her a woman all day long. You can push it every way you can think of. You can promote it every way you can think of, but it doesn't change the fact that this is a man dressed as an old woman who isn't worthy or isn't to be honored in any way. And the more we do this kind of stupid honoring and celebrating, the seeds are going to be sown for our own destruction. Now, you wonder why Russia wants to fight the West? You can't figure out why Vladimir Putin would want to oppose the Western world's values? Well, here is a big reason why he objects to what's being done all over the Western world, and that is this whole transgender insanity. And on that point, Putin is actually right. Now, he's wrong in invading Ukraine, but he's right on the transgender issues. It is insane, and we should never encourage it. Well, I hope that's been a helpful commentary. See you back next week. God bless.